Hi, this is Peter Tayler from 24 Lives Per Second, and as I've moved over to Manchester, I'm going to be reviewing a couple of smaller films that are coming out over here. They're unlikely to be released at the Mallard, but check them out when they come out on DVD. The first film I'm going to be reviewing is called Cosmopolis, and it's about a young businessman who owns a multi-million-dollar company. The film follows him on a journey across New York to get a haircut on a day when there are lots of riots and the financial system is collapsing.
I'm looking for more. Aim and fire. Come on, do it. Click the switch. Show me something I don't know.
The film's directed by David Cronenberg and stars Robert Pattinson in his first role as a human, although to be honest I'm not sure he manages it in this one. I went into this film as a huge fan of Cronenberg's work, and I specifically didn't read anything about this film. And usually I do recommend this approach, but this one, it was the exception. I'll start with the negatives, of which there were a fair amount. This film is not so much a story, but a succession of philosophical debates on our society and life, and financial system. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but you do need to mentally prepare yourself for about 2 hours of this. And in a cinema, it just wasn't pleasant. Pattinson's character is usually in a limo for most of the film, and he basically encounters various members of his company, and a couple of occasions his wife, and they just have lots of debates. And to be honest, after 20 minutes of the same thing going on, I just found this a bit tiresome. Another negative is there's no character development at all apart from a bit with Pattinson's character. You don't really feel any empathy for him, and there's no kind of tension or ticking clock in this film in the slightest, apart from the fact that Pattinson needs to get to the barber, although there's no time limit on this, so there really is very little tension in the film even when the riots are happening. There are positives in the film. The locations are all quite interesting, the ones that aren't the limo, even though the limo is quite well done. And the cinematography is very, very good looking. Pattinson actually plays his character very well, which sounds like an insult, but it's not. He comes across as very uncaring, which I think was deliberate, and he seems very numb to any of his surroundings, or he doesn't feel any kind of emotion, and he gives off just the right amount of crazy. The film is slow overall, as I sort of mentioned before, but does contain an interesting finale, which is almost worth the watch, but not quite. Overall, I think this film verges on pretentious. It has a very unique visual style, and the claustrophobia of the main setting of the limo is quite effective. But for me, it lacks any feeling. I don't think it helped that I had no idea of how the film would be done, and maybe I missed the point of it. The book probably comes across better, but I was looking for an engaging story, and that's just not what it was about. So my recommendation, never ever watch this in the cinema. I don't think you can now anyway, so that's alright, but even on DVD, I wouldn't bother seeking it out. I mean, Cronenberg fans perhaps, only if to see his almost transition from body horror to dialogue horror. Dialogue horror being a good thing. I mean, the dialogue in this film was very good, and if you look at what's the other film he did, Dangerous Method, the dialogue in that is very prominent. But one of the best things about this film was the soundtrack. Very, very good soundtrack, and there's one song in particular which is one of the best hip-hop songs I've heard in quite a while, modern ones anyway, and I'll put a link to that in the bottom. It's called Mecca.